everybody, and welcome to the Art Gallery of Algoma's Summer Art Series. My name's Audrey, and today I'll be teaching you how to make a couple of cute clay pinch pots. Today I'll be showing you how to make a cat pot and a frog pot. So without further ado, let's get into it. The things you'll need in order to create your clay pots will be a brick of air drying modeling clay, a cup of water, a plastic butter knife, some toothpicks, acrylic paint. Today I'll be using pink, green, and black, but you might choose to make your animals different colors, some paint brushes. I'll be using a larger brush to paint the pots and a fine brush to create details on the faces. And last but not least, you might want to use a clear gloss spray paint to seal your pots once you've painted them. Let's get started on making our cat pinch pot. Using our butter knife, the first thing we're going to do is cut a piece of clay off our brick. Estimate how much clay you'll need based on how big you want to make your pot. Start squishing the clay together in your hands to soften it. You can always add more if you want to make it a bit bigger. I ended up using a little more than half of my brick of clay for this first pot. Start rolling your clay into a ball and smooth it out as best as you can so that there are no cracks. Dip your fingers into some water to help soften the clay and smooth out the ball completely. Once you're happy with it, make an indent into the center with your thumb and press down so that you make a fairly large hole in the center without poking through to the other side. You'll want to keep the base of your pot fairly thick to prevent this from happening. As you mold the inside with your thumb, use the rest of your fingers to press on the outside and shape it to your desired thickness. As you can see, I'm leaving the walls of my pot fairly thick as well to prevent them from cracking. Continue dipping your fingers into the water and smoothing out any cracks or bumps in the clay, and make sure that the walls of your pot are about the same height all the way around. For a more in-depth tutorial on how to make a clay pinch pot, check out the Pat Caldwell episode of the Art Gallery of Algoma's Inspired by Joy series. Now we're going to make the ears of our cat. Cut off another small piece of clay from your brick and mold it into a disc. Try to make the disc about the same thickness as the walls of your pot. Using your butter knife, cut out a small triangle to make the first ear. Shape the remaining clay into another disc that's the same thickness as the first. Place your first ear on the disc and cut around it to make an identical triangle for the second ear. Use some water and your finger to smooth out the edges of your triangles a bit to make the ears a little more rounded. Now we'll use a technique called scoring and slipping to stick the ears to our pot. To score the clay, use a toothpick to make cross-hatching marks at the base of the ear. Cross-hatching means that we'll have a bunch of lines going in one direction and more lines overlapping those going the opposite direction. Use this cross-hatching technique to score the top edge of your pot where you're going to stick the ear on. Now we'll use the slipping technique, taking a little bit of water and applying it to the areas we just scored. This will help our clay to stick together really well. Now stick the two areas that we just scored together and use your finger and some water to smooth the clay where the ear meets the pot. By doing this, we're fusing the clay together so that the ears won't break off. We'll now use some water to smooth out the edges of our second ear to make it less pointy. Then use the same scoring and slipping process to attach your second ear to the pot, leaving a little bit of space in between the first ear and this one. Once again, use your finger to smooth in between the ear and the pot, fusing the two together so that it looks like one continuous piece of clay without a crack in between. If you find that the ears are a bit heavy, your shaping has caused the pot to cave in, or it just needs a bit more support, you might want to grab a little clay, press it on, and smooth it out flat so that there are no cracks. Do any last smoothing and shaping with your finger and some water, and set your pot aside to dry. This air drying clay takes about a day to dry. We'll now mold our frog pot using the rest of our clay brick. First, we'll take a large ball of clay and roll it out so that it's smooth, just like we did last time. Press your thumb into the center and use the rest of your fingers to shape the edges. Then, take another smaller ball and using some water, roll it out so that it's smooth. Cut that ball in half with your butter knife, press it down flat to make two semicircles, and mold them so that they're about the same thickness as the walls of your pot. Now, score the base of your first semicircle in the section of the pot where you'll be placing it. Use some water to attach this piece and smooth it on so that it sticks. Follow this same process with your second semicircle, leaving a little bit of space in between the two. Smooth everything out using some water and your finger, getting rid of any cracks or large bumps. When you're finished, set it aside to dry for about a day. When your creatures are fully dry, they should be hard to the touch and will likely be a lighter shade of gray. We'll start by painting our cat pot. I decided to paint mine light pink, but you can choose any color you'd like. Be sure to paint all around your pot, on the inner edges, and inside the pot. As you're picking it up to paint it, be mindful of which parts are still wet to avoid lifting off any paint, and try not to pick it up by the ears since they're a bit more fragile. Once the paint is dry, pick up your pot by the sides to paint the bottom. If your paint looks too patchy or transparent after the first coat, you may want to give it a second coat all over. When you're finished, it should look something like this. We'll set it aside to dry before painting the face, and in the meantime, we'll move on to painting the base of our frog. I chose to make my frog light green, but you can get creative with different colors or patterns. Again, make sure that you coat the entire pot, including the sides, edges, the inside, and the bottom. You may want to give it a second coat if necessary. Now we'll set that aside to dry and go back to our cat pot. Now that the paint has dried fully, we can draw on the face. You could freehand this part with paint, but I decided to sketch my face first with a pencil. I drew 2 rainbow curves for closed eyes, an oval for the nose, 2 curves for the mouth, and 3 whiskers on each side. When you're happy with your drawing, use a very fine brush to outline the facial features with black paint. Work slowly and carefully to make your lines as clean as possible. Now we'll draw on the face of our frog. I decided to draw 2 circles for the eyes within the 2 semicircles we made earlier, 2 small dots for the nose, a long curve for a smile, and 2 ovals at the outer corners of the smile to make blush on the cheeks. For both of these pots, you can get creative and make any facial expressions you'd like on your creatures to give them a unique personality. We'll now use a thin brush and black paint to fill in the eyes, make 2 dots for the nose, and carefully trace the smile. I then used the same pink as I used for the cat to make the blush on the cheeks. When you're happy with both of your pots, erase any remaining pencil lines. To seal our pots and give them a nice glossy finish, we'll now coat them with clear gloss spray paint. You'll want to get some help from an adult for this part. It's best to spray your pots outdoors in a well-ventilated area. Be sure to spray all around them, let them dry, and then spray paint the bottoms. And there we have it. These pots are a great size for small plants like succulents and are also perfect as holders for things like jewelry and keys. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and follow the Art Gallery of Algoma on social media if you're not already. Thank you so much for watching.